Welcome to the InnoGuide podcast. I'm your host, Bob Boudelier. This podcast, my website, and my weekly newsletter are focused on helping you discover the secrets of innovation. Since I don't rely on paid ads, I want to thank our customers who subscribe to our AI Fusion Kickstarter program and those who leverage AI Fusion product development and coaching to bring human-centered AI into their organizations. You can find us at www.innoguide.net. In this episode number 75, we'll be sharing Turning Pro by Steven Pressfield. This is kind of an unusual book in that it explores what it takes to move from being what he calls an amateur to a pro and what has to happen in order for you to cross that chasm. I found this especially interesting because I've crossed this chasm before and I might be crossing it again. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to the InnoGuide podcast, where we share the works of authors and mentors to guide innovation. Let's get started. The weight you can't name. Let me tell you about the morning I knew something was wrong. I was 32 years old. I woke up in a cheap apartment in Palo Alto, California. The sun was coming through the blinds. I could hear the traffic on El Camino Real, and I felt nothing. Not despair exactly, not panic, just a dull, persistent ache, like a low-grade fever that never breaks. I had been living this way for years, moving from job to job, relationship to relationship, city to city, always telling myself the same story, figuring it out. I'm on my way. I just need a little more time. But time wasn't the problem. The problem was simpler and much harder. I was living my life as an amateur. Now, when I say amateur, I don't mean incompetent. I don't mean lazy. The word amateur comes from the Latin amator, one who loves. And that sounds beautiful, doesn't it, to love something? But here's the lie hidden in that word. If we truly loved the thing we say we love, writing, painting, building, leading, we wouldn't flirt with it. We would marry it. The amateur loves the idea of the work. The professional loves the work itself. And for most of my life, I have been in love with the idea. Part 1. The Life of Almost. The Comfort of Staying Small. The amateur life is seductive because it asks so little of us. It lets us dream without risking failure. It lets us talk without committing to action. It lets us stay busy without ever doing the thing that matters. I know this life intimately. I lived it for years. I told people I was a writer. I read books about writing. I talked about writing at parties. I even wrote occasionally when inspiration struck or when I felt particularly brave. But I didn't show up to write. Not really. Because showing up meant confronting something I wasn't ready to face. The possibility that I might not be good enough. So instead, I stayed in motion. I took jobs that kept me close to the creative life without demanding I actually live in it. I drove trucks. I worked in advertising. I tended bar. And every night when the noise died down, I felt that ache again. The amateur is terrified, not of failure exactly, but of exposure. Because if we never truly commit, we never truly fail. And if we never truly fail, we can keep telling ourselves the story, I could have been great, I just never got the chance. That story is a prison. The shadow career, a metaphor for fear. There's a concept I want you to understand because it might be the most important thing I ever learned about myself. It's called the shadow career. A shadow career is what we pursue when we're too afraid to pursue our true calling. It looks like the real thing, it feels like the real thing, it even pays like the real thing sometimes, but it costs us nothing. No risk, no exposure, no real failure. For me, the shadow career was driving trucks. I told myself it was honest work, that it gave me freedom, that it let me think, that it was temporary, just until I figured things out. But the truth, every mile I drove was a mile farther from the page I was afraid to face. Shadow careers are everywhere. The teacher who wants to paint, the coach who wants to play, the consultant who wants to build, the executive who wants to write. We take jobs that orbit our calling without ever landing on it. And here's the cruelest part. Shadow careers can be successful. You can make good money. You can be respected. You can even be happy on the surface. But underneath, there's always that ache. Because deep down, you know you're living a metaphor. So let me ask you, if your current life is making you restless, what is it a metaphor for? What is it protecting you from? Part 2. Resistance wears a friendly face. The enemy that looks like comfort. There's a force at work in our lives. I call it resistance. Resistance is not obvious. If it were, we'd defeat it easily. Resistance doesn't show up as a monster. It shows up as a friend. It says, you've had a long day. You deserve a break. It says, you're not ready yet. Do a little more research. It says, tomorrow. You'll start tomorrow. Resistance is the voice that sounds reasonable, compassionate even. But it's not your friend. Resistance has one goal, to keep you from doing the work that matters. It doesn't want to kill you. It wants to keep you comfortable, distracted, safe. It has an arsenal of weapons. Addiction, repetition without progress. Every addiction shares two qualities. First, repetition without progress. We do the same thing over and over, but we never move forward. Second, incapacity as a payoff. The addiction gives us an excuse. I can't do the work today. I'm too tired, too distracted, too broken. Addiction isn't just drugs or alcohol. It's anything we use to run from our calling. Scrolling, binge watching, shopping, drama, busyness. Resistance hates two things above all else: concentration and depth. Because when we work with focus, when we go deep, we succeed. And resistance cannot allow that. So it distracts us. It comforts us. It keeps us shallow. I spent years in this cycle. I would wake up with good intentions. I would sit down to write, and then I'd check my email. I'd make another cup of coffee. I'd reorganize my desk. I'd convince myself I needed to get in the right headspace. And by the end of the day, I had done everything except the work. Resistance had won again. Part 3. The moment that breaks you open. When the story stops working. We imagine transformation as a moment of light, a breakthrough, an epiphany that lifts us up. But that's not how it happens. Real change feels like collapse. There comes a moment, quiet, unglamorous, when the story you've been telling yourself stops working. You see yourself clearly, and it's not flattering. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my truck at a rest stop somewhere outside Fresno. I had just finished a long haul, and I was exhausted. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, and I thought, this is not my life. Not in a dramatic way, not with tears or rage. Just a simple, undeniable truth. This is not my life. I was 32 years old. I had been figuring it out for more than a decade, and I had nothing to show for it. No book, no body of work, no proof that I had ever tried, just excuses and fear. In that moment, the illusion dissolved. I wasn't a writer who drove trucks to pay the bills. I was a truck driver who talked about writing. And that realization felt like hell. The sacred collapse. But here's what I didn't understand at the time. That moment was sacred because in that moment, I was finally free to choose. I could rebuild the lie. I could tell myself a new story. I could find another shadow career, another distraction, or another excuse. Or I could turn pro. Turning pro doesn't mean you suddenly have all the answers. It doesn't mean you stop being afraid. It means you stop running. Part 4. The death required. Killing the amateur. Turning pro is not a career move. It's an identity shift. You don't add something. You subtract. You give up being the person who almost does the work. You give up the drama, the excuses, the comforting chaos. You kill the amateur version of yourself, not violently, deliberately. I remember the day I turned pro. It wasn't dramatic. There was no ceremony. I just sat at my desk and I made a decision. I'm going to write every day, no matter what. Not when I feel inspired, not when I have time, not when conditions are perfect. Every single day. And that decision changed everything. It changed when I woke up. It changed what I ate. It changed who I spent time with. It changed what I said yes to and what I said no to. People noticed. Some cheered. Some drifted away. That's part of the cost. Because when you turn pro, you're not just changing your schedule, you're changing your identity. And not everyone will understand. The two lives. Here's the truth. We all have two lives. Life we're living and the life we know deep down we were meant to live. The distance between those two lives is the distance we must cross. And that crossing requires a death. The death of the person who waits for permission. The death of the person who needs applause. The death of the person who plays it safe. You must kill that person because, not because they're bad, but because they're in the way. Part 5. The professional way of being. What changes when you turn pro? The professional does not wait for inspiration. The professional shows up every day, whether the muse speaks or not. The professional understands there are two salaries in life, the financial salary, money, praise, recognition, applause, and the psychological salary, the deep, quiet satisfaction of doing the work itself. The amateur works for the first, the professional works for the second. And again, the first is the financial salary, and the second is the psychological salary. Amateur works for the first, the professional works for the second. This doesn't mean the professional doesn't care about money. Of course we do. We have bills to pay. But we don't let money or lack of it stop us from doing the work, because the work is the point. So what are the professional's habits? Let me tell you what changed when I turned pro. I showed up every day. Not just when I felt like it, every single day. Even when the words didn't come, even when I hated what I wrote, I showed up. I stayed on the job all day. I didn't write for an hour and then reward myself with distraction. I treated it like a job because it was. I committed for the long haul. I stopped thinking in terms of weeks or months, and I started thinking in terms of years, decades, a lifetime. I deferred gratification. I stopped needing immediate results. I stopped checking my email every 5 minutes to see if someone had validated my work. I learned to sit with the discomfort of not knowing if it was good enough. I accepted no excuses, not from myself, not from anyone. If I didn't do the work, it was my fault, no one else's. I asked for help. I stopped pretending I had all the answers. I found mentors. I studied the masters. I learned. I stopped identifying with my work. When someone criticized my writing, I didn't take it personally, because I am not my work. I am the person who does the work. I endured adversity. There were days, weeks, months, when nothing went right, when the work felt impossible, when I wanted to quit, but I didn't, because professionals don't quit. I self-validated. I stopped waiting for someone else to tell me I was good enough. I decided I was good enough, and I got to work. These habits didn't come naturally. I had to build them, one day at a time, but they changed my life. Part 6. Practice, the container for power. The sacred ritual. Professionals don't rely on willpower alone. We rely on practice. A practice is a rigorous prescribed regimen with the intention of elevating the mind and spirit to a higher level. It's true for writers, for yogis, for athletes, for entrepreneurs. A practice has 3 elements. 1, a space, physical place where you do the work. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be yours, sacred and protected. Number 2, a time. A specific time when you do the work every day, same time, no negotiation. And 3, an intention, a clear purpose, not to be perfect, but to be present, to show up, to commune with something larger than yourself. When I turned pro, I created the practice. Every morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m., I made coffee, I sat at my desk, and I wrote. For 3 hours. No phone, no email, no distractions. Just me and the page. Some days the words flowed, some days they didn't. But I showed up every single day, and over time, something shifted. The muse started showing up too. The muse rewards discipline. Here's what I learned. The muse doesn't come to amateurs. The muse comes to professionals, because the muse knows who's serious. When you show up every day, when you honor your practice, when you treat the work as sacred, the muse notices, and she rewards you. Not with perfection, but with presence. She whispers, she guides, she gives you what you need, but only if you show up. Part 7. The hero's journey and yours. The wanderer returns. Every great story follows the same arc. The hero leaves home, the hero wanders, the hero suffers, the hero learns, and then the hero returns. Not empty-handed. The hero brings a gift. That gift is not the suffering itself, it's what the hero made from the suffering. Refined, shaped, offered. You are that hero. Your life, your struggles, your fears, your failures is the raw material. And your work is the gift. The world needs what only you can bring back, not because you're special, but because you're you. No one else has lived your life. No one else has seen what you've seen. No one else has your voice. If you don't do the work, if you don't turn pro, that gift dies with you. The stakes are real. This is not a metaphor. Every day you don't do the work is a day that gift stays buried. Every day you stay in the shadow career is a day you betray your calling. Every day you let resistance win is a day you lose a piece of yourself. I don't say this to shame you. I say it because it's true. And because I wasted years, and I don't want to waste yours. Part 8. The Long Game. There is no finish line. Here's something the amateur doesn't understand. There is no finish line. Turning pro is not a destination, it's a way of being. Picasso painted past 90. The Spartan king, Achilles, fought in armor at 82. Professionals work until the wheels fall off. Not because we're obsessed, but because the work is the point. The work is the practice. The practice is the life. When you turn pro, you stop asking, when will I be done? You start asking, what's next? Playing for tomorrow. There will be bad days. Days when resistance is stronger than you are. Days when the work feels impossible. Days when you want to quit. On those days, the professional plays for tomorrow. Take what you can get. Stay patient. The defense may crack late in the game. One bad day is nothing. You're in it for the long haul. Closing. The line still exists. Question that remains. So here we are. I've told you my story. I've told you about the shadow career, about resistance, about the moment that broke me open. I've told you what it means to turn pro, but I can't make that decision for you. Only you can do that. The line is still there. You already know where it is. You've always known. On one side is the life you're living now, the comfortable life, the safe life, the life of almost. On the other side is the life you were meant to live, the life of commitment, of depth, of work that matters. The distance between those two lives is not measured in miles. It's measured in courage. Turning pro is not for everyone. It is lonely. It is demanding. It is irreversible. But on the other side of that line is something rare. Self-respect. Not confidence, not fame, not applause. Self-respect. The quiet knowledge that you did the work, that you showed up, that you honored your calling, that you became who you were meant to be. The question is not whether you're ready. The question is, will you cross it? Final words. I turned pro more than 30 years ago, and I've never looked back. Not because it's been easy, it hasn't, but because it's been true. And truth in the end is all we have. So if you're listening to this and you feel that ache, that quiet, persistent ache, you know what it means. It means you're ready. It means the line is calling. It means it's time. Turn pro. Do the work. Become who you were meant to be. The world is waiting. So while we reach the end of the story, I decided to have Claude Sonnet help me create an action punch list for turning pro. Guide to identifying your shadow role and discovering your true calling. Use this punch list to identify where you are now and what you need to do to turn pro. Answer these questions honestly. They will reveal the gap between your shadow life and your true calling. I will make this punch list available on the Inner Guide website as well. Part 1. Identify your shadow role. Your shadow role is what you're doing instead of your true calling. It looks similar, feels safe, but costs you nothing and gives you nothing real in return. Ask yourself these questions. What am I doing right now that makes me feel restless or unfulfilled? What job or role am I in that feels close to what I really want, but not quite it? What am I doing that lets me stay comfortable while avoiding real risk? If I'm unhappy in my current role, what is it a metaphor for? What is my current life protecting me from? Am I a teacher when I want to be a painter? A coach when I want to be a player? A consultant when I want to be a builder? What would I be doing if failure didn't scare me? Signs you're in a shadow role. You feel busy but unfulfilled. You talk about your real work but never do it. You're successful on paper but empty inside. You feel like you're living someone else's life. You have a persistent ache that won't go away. You keep saying someday or when the time is right. You're orbiting your calling without ever landing on it. Part 2, discovering your true calling. Your true calling is the work that terrifies you and won't let you go. It's what you think about when you're alone. It's what you dream about but haven't committed to. Ask yourself these questions. What work do I think about when no one's watching? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? What am I afraid to try because the stakes feel too high? What do I talk about doing but never actually start? What would I regret not doing on my deathbed? What work makes me feel most alive, even when it's hard? If I had unlimited courage, what would I commit to tomorrow? What gift do I have that the world needs, but I'm too afraid to offer? Signs that you found your calling. It terrifies you, but you can't stop thinking about it. You feel guilty when you're not working on it. Time disappears when you're doing it. You don't need external validations to keep you going. It feels like the truest expression of who you are. You're willing to sacrifice comfort to pursue it. It's the work you were put on this earth to do. Part 3, recognizing resistance. Resistance is that force that keeps you from doing your true work. It disguises itself as comfort, distraction, and reasonable excuses. How resistance shows up. Procrastination. I'll start tomorrow. Distraction. Scrolling, binge watching, busy work. Perfectionism. It's not ready yet. Research addiction. I need to learn more first. Drama and chaos. Creating problems to avoid the work. Self-medication. Drugs, alcohol, shopping, food. Seeking permission. I need someone to tell me it's okay. Waiting for inspiration. I don't feel ready. Ask yourself, what am I using to avoid my real work? What excuses do I tell myself every day? What distractions do I turn to when I should be working? What am I addicted to that keeps me from going deep? And what would I have to give up to turn pro? Part 4. Turn pro, the decision. Turning pro is not a feeling, it's a decision. A decision to structure your life around the work, a decision to stop running. The professional's commitment? I will show up every day no matter what. I will stay on the job all day, no half measures. I am committed for the long haul, years, not weeks. I will defer gratification, the work is the reward. I will accept no excuses from myself or anyone else. I will ask for help when I need it. I will not take failure or success personally. I will endure adversity without quitting. I will self-validate, I don't need permission. And I will do the work whether I feel inspired or not. What must die when you turn pro? The person who waits for permission. The person who needs applause to keep going. The person who plays it safe. The person who talks about the work instead of doing it. The person who makes excuses. The person who lives for tomorrow instead of today. Part 5. Building your practice. A practice is the structure that holds your professional life, and it has 3 elements: space, time, and intention. Create your practice. 1. Space. Where will you do your work? Do you have a dedicated space for your work? Is it protected from distractions? And does it feel sacred to you? 2. Time. When will you do your work? What time will you show up every day? How long will you work? Is this time non-negotiable? And 3. Intention. Why are you doing this work? What is your purpose? What are you trying to create or become? Are you willing to commit for a lifetime? In Part 6, the final question. You already know what the line is you've always known. On one side is the life you're living now, the comfortable life, the safe life, the life of almost. On the other side, the life you were meant to live, the life of commitment, depth, and work that matters. The distance between those 2 lives is measured in courage. Will you cross it? If you're ready to turn pro, start today. Not tomorrow, today. Show up, do the work, become who you were meant to be. Bonus, 30-day Turning Pro Challenge. Ready to turn pro? Commit to these actions for 30 days. So this is a 5-week plan. Week 1, identify your shadow role and your true calling. Write them down. Week 2, create your practice. Choose your space, time, and intention. Week 3, show up every day. Do the work, no excuses. Week 4, identify and eliminate one form of resistance from your life. Week 5, reflect. What changed? What died? What was born? After 30 days, you won't be the same person. You'll be a professional. I hope this has been helpful. I'll include a link to the Turning Pro Action Punch List in the comments. You can also go to www.innoguide.net/InnoGuide Podcast and find the punch list under podcast resources at the bottom for podcast number 75, Turning Pro. But that wraps it up for today. I recommend reading Turning Pro or listening to it as an audiobook, there are many more details in his narrative and in his book. The book is Turning Pro by Steven Pressfield, and this is part 3 of a 3-part series of books that he has. I believe it's good to go through these exercises periodically to determine whether we are in our amateur mode or whether we've turned pro. And if we are in one mode and long for the other, well, perhaps this will be the push we need to move across that line. Remember that our website is innoguide.net, where I have many resources for innovators and people who want to build medical products with or without embedded AI, and those that want to use AI in their processes and want to learn how to use AI in their development process. You'll be learning it from someone who's been working in medtech for 30 years, so I really know the ropes in regulated industries. And I've been using large language models since they emerged in 2022 and building embedded machine learning models into products for almost 10 years. I want to thank Steve McIntyre for producing this, and I want to thank you again for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next time. That's a wrap.